question. What if your health advisors told you your level of concern should be about monkeypox and the cases that are in the United States and around the world?
Well, they haven't told me the level of exposure yet, but it is something that everybody should be concerned about. We're working on it hard, figure out what we do and what vaccine, if any, may be available for it. But it is a concern in the sense that if it were to spread, it's consequential. That's all they've told me.
All right, now we have to talk about a subject that, frankly, I have been avoiding, like the plague, because it is another plague, and I'm so tired of talking about plagues, which I think I have every right to be after the past 2 years, but apparently there's another one swirling through the trees, and its name is monkeypox. So I'm going to let Brad take over this segment, because honestly, I just can't.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just can't. No, not this again. Don't do this. But I felt we had to talk about the monkeypox because people are freaking out over this new outbreak. You might not have heard of it yet, but it's starting to get coverage in the mainstream media, everywhere from the BBC to CNN. And actually, it even trended on Twitter yesterday, hashtag monkeypoxalypse. So there's a small outbreak of this virus, and we need to just do a reality check, run through the facts on the ground, and let people know what's actually going on, and so we don't get caught up in this hysteria.
Yeah, I think that's right. And according to NBC News, they say that although scientists rarely spot monkeypox outside of the 11 countries in Africa that have reported cases, a recent outbreak has led to the disease to be identified in a dozen European countries, along with the U.S., Australia, Canada, and Israel. At least 160 confirmed cases of monkeypox have been reported this month in non-African countries. All but 10 of those cases have been in Europe, 56 in the United Kingdom, 41 in Spain, 37 in Portugal, and single-digit case counts in Austria, Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Sweden, and Switzerland. So this is hardly an epidemic at this point.
So we're seeing all this hype, Hannah, but I think we just need to tamper it down and talk about the facts. First and foremost, this thing is nowhere near as transmissible as COVID-19. It's actually really not very transmissible at all, actually. It spreads from extended, close person-to-person contact with bodily fluids and such. The current outbreak is believed to have originated possibly through sexual transmission at a couple of, I think, raves or events or something involving men who have sex with men, some of the cases. But it's just not there's no asymptomatic spread involved like there is with COVID. It's not just the crazy transmission doesn't happen with this. This is not a new virus. This has been around for decades, and that's important to note. And so because it's nowhere near as transmissible, it's much easier to contain and avoid than COVID ever was. The second big thing we have to remember is that it's totally different from COVID and the pandemic because we have a vaccine for this virus, essentially. Not quite perfectly, but the smallpox vaccine, which is a very similar virus, can be given to people once they catch, and this is according to the CDC, once they catch monkeypox, which takes weeks to fully set in. And if you give them the smallpox vaccine, it essentially means that they won't get very sick from it. And it's 85% effective, which is a high efficacy rate for a vaccine. The flu vaccine is 50% effective or something for context. So this is, for most people, a very mild disease. It doesn't spread easily at all. And I think this is just a lot of panic porn right now because these people, the media know they can get clicks. The government know they can get more power and more money. There's an incentive structure that leans towards being fearful and scaring people. And I think it's really harmful.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, those are good points to remember and keep in mind. The other good point to remember and keep in mind is that the government cannot stop a disease, which they have proven over and over and over again over the past 2 years. Nothing they did to try to combat COVID actually stopped COVID. Everything they did created much worse effects than COVID. And sure enough, they're going to try to use this to push many of the same things. They're trying to get money for their wars. They're trying to get more social programs, more power. They're only ever going to try to use crises in this manner. So be on guard. Don't fall for what you fell for last time around. That's all I can really caution when it comes to this. And try to just keep touching grass and living your life. People cannot keep living in fear. I mean, I saw a thing on Reddit the other day about this woman talking about her marriage is ruined because her husband still won't leave their house. And it's just this is gone so far at this point. If you are still not leaving your house, unless you have some very serious autoimmune disease or something like that, go see a therapist, please. I
Yeah,
don't want you to live like that.
I saw an article in the Washington Post where a mother referred to her 2 children as unvaccinated vectors of disease. And I'm like, these people are sick. This is so much more than a virus at this point, because if you live your entire life in fear and basically choose not to live out of the fear that you might get sick and die, which has always been a fear and a risk, then essentially you're just skipping to the part where you die because you're not really living life anymore. And it's really sad. The other thing I would add is this is an unfortunate consequence is that if this does become a bigger issue, and I would say it could, the facts could change. Where we're at right now, there's no cause for alarm, but the facts could always change. Unfortunately, our government and our public health officials have burned. They've just torpedoed their credibility on all of this stuff with the politicization, with the flip-flops from people like Fauci, on all these issues. And some of us were saying that at the time, right? That you can't do these noble lies where you mislead the public about things like masks and school reopening and herd immunity without torpedoing your credibility, so that next time another real problem emerges, no one's going to listen to what you have to say. And we can't blame them for that. We can only blame the government, frankly.
Yeah, I actually wrote a piece about this early on in the pandemic because I listened to this episode of Hidden Brain, which is one of my favorite podcasts, but it was talking about an epidemic, a true epidemic, and I think it was Rwanda, and how they actually had an effective public health response to that. And the number one thing that governments can and should do in these situations is to give constant, clear information, to be honest, to be transparent, to give constant updates, and to admit that like things are changing rapidly. You're watching science be experimented with in real time. We don't have the answers yet. We're going to update you as best we can, to have like an intellectually honest conversation with the public about that. That was the best thing our government could have done 2 years ago, and they went the complete opposite direction of that, and they really did shred all credibility. And the fact is, like at this point, if we do have something more serious than COVID, COVID did not end up being nearly as deadly as people thought or as serious as people thought. If we do end up having something where we truly do have a disease that is as bad as some people believed COVID to be at the beginning, people aren't going to listen to you. They're not going to do the things that you suggest that they do. They're not going to actually give you any credibility. And so they've actually really shot themselves in the foot on this.